Welcome to a spring afternoon in Russia. As I walk around this neighborhood, I'm going to talk a little bit about why Russians are not fat, or how you're supposed to say it these days, obese, like Americans are. And this is a topic that's close to my heart at the moment because all my life I've eaten pretty badly. Junk food, chocolate, crisps, sweets, fizzy drinks, all my life. Literally, I've been a chocoholic. There'll be days when I literally couldn't relax at home unless I knew I had loads of chocolate and fizzy drinks in the cupboard. And this is really bad. And I decided, 3 months ago, just before New Year, I started having symptoms of a diabetic, and I started to worry. And so I went on the keto diet, and I've been on keto for just over 3 months, and I've lost 15 kilograms in weight. I'm actually looking a bit skinny right now. I need to get myself back in the gym and get some muscle mass on me. Why is it that Russians are not fat? It's a really interesting question, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. So before making this video, I had a quick look online, and it says the statistics are 30% of Americans are overweight and 42% are obese. Now, I'm not sure if that's 30 plus 42, but in the US, I always see extremes. You see people that are really into sport, and then you see fat people. And I don't mean to say this to be rude to anyone, right? Some people have a genuine problem for being overweight. Some people perhaps feel they have a genuine problem for being overweight. At the end of the day, we all know that Americans are overweight on average a lot more than pretty much everywhere else in the world, right? So whether the statistics are completely accurate or not, we don't really need to get into that. We know that American people are typically overweight. So I also looked at the obesity rate in Russia, and it shows that Russia has a really high obesity rate, which is really surprising for me, because I think what happens is perhaps once someone gets to over 50, perhaps they tend to get a bit more obese. Maybe they gain a bit more weight, because in Russia you never see people overweight. You just don't see it. Perhaps grandmas walking around, but when it comes to young people, you very, very, very rarely see anyone overweight at all. So I was really surprised by the statistics, but I guess who made the statistics? So I guess we need to look at a couple of the reasons why Americans specifically are overweight compared to Russians. And the first one is the portion sizes. The portion sizes in the US are massive. They're absolutely huge. I remember going on holiday to the US as a child, and we would order one portion for 2 of us because the portions are just insane. I don't know how it is you can eat that amount of food. It really is mental. The next reason is how your cities are planned. You guys have your suburbs, and your suburbs are way out of town, and you need to drive to get to places. In Russia, typically, most people like to live in the city in an apartment where they're reasonably near to different amenities, and they walk to them. Now, I'm not saying that Russian people don't have cars, but the average trip is going to be a lot less. You don't need to use your car on a daily basis. You can walk to the supermarket. You can walk to the center to go to, some sort of attraction, or you get the bus and walk to the bus stop. So public transport is a lot more of a bigger thing in Russia than it is in the US. And so these two things of eating less and at the same time walking more obviously help Russians to be slimmer than Americans. So in the US, I'm pretty sure every American citizen knows what a Big Mac is. I think if you ask a lot of Russian people, they won't know. In Russia, we don't have loads and loads of fast food joints like you guys have in the US. Obviously, we don't even have McDonald's now. It's вкусная и точка, but we still have the big hit instead of the Big Mac. Now, I remember a few years ago, I went with a taxi driver through the McDonald's drive-through, and the taxi driver just said to the person, you know, have you got some sort of sandwiches, some butterbrot? Because he had no idea what McDonald's sells. He just wanted some sort of burger, and I thought, wow, that's really nice, because in the UK, I think everybody knows that McDonald's sells Big Macs and hamburgers and cheeseburgers without necessarily needing to look at the menu. They can order a hamburger, a cheeseburger, a Big Mac, filet fish, a chicken sandwich. These are the standard things that I think everybody knows about, whereas obviously in Russia, people don't know as much. And so typically people won't eat fast food as much. Even when we go to a restaurant and I'll order something like at a restaurant, maybe a chicken burger. People will be like, why are you eating a chicken burger when you can have a nice fish and salad? Now, obviously, since I've been on keto, I have been eating better. But even when I go somewhere with my friends, if we stop on the road and I say, do you want to go to McDonald's? They're like, no, let's go to a nice place and grab some barbecue. And so we don't have that whole kind of need, I guess, and the craving for fast food. But of course, I mean, I don't want to get it twisted. Russian people still enjoy fast food, just not on the level that the Americans enjoy fast food. And in the UK, for example, we have a late night binge attitude. We have kebab shops and takeaways and all these pizza places where after you've gone out and had a few drinks, you'll go to the kebab shop, get a two-piece chicken and chips, or chicken tikka and naan with chips on top, something like that. Whereas in Russia, we don't have those late night kind of like binging of fast food. So I guess a lot has to do with the culture, no kind of fast food culture, and then also the types of foods that Russians eat. Like, for example, buckwheat is a staple of the Russian diet. People that do sport in Russia eat buckwheat, very, very popular. Also, Russian vegetables and Russian products have no genetically modified ingredients, no GMOs in Russia, which is something that's completely different to the US. I've been watching quite a lot of documentaries about the additives that go into the food in the US, and it's pretty crazy. I was watching, just for example, the McDonald's fries and the amount of additives and chemicals that go into those foods compared to in Europe. One of the things that's really interesting is the FDA in the US that controls the quality of foods. Well, they're reactive or reactionary, is that how you say it? They allow any chemicals and additives to be added to food until they're proved to be unhealthy. That's very interesting, isn't it? Because the European way of looking at it and the Russian way of looking at it is you've got to prove that they're safe before they can be added. Whereas the American FDA is the opposite. Put anything in food until it's proven to not be safe. Judo school, and you can see they're doing judo inside there. If you go for lunch or dinner at a Russian restaurant, then the chances are that you'll have what's called a business lunch, and that is first, second and third course. Russians know about healthy food. You can pick your main course, you pick your first course, which is a salad or a soup, you can pick your dessert, and then you have a glass of like fruit juice, which is morse, which is natural fruit juice, and that's a typical lunch. Now, I know that in the US and the UK, the more kind of packed lunch with chips is a more of a typical thing to eat. So Russia, just like the US, has a huge barbecue culture, and so in theory the US should be healthy as well. But I'm a bit fearful that Russia could end up going the direction of the US simply because we have more and more fast food places opening up. Obviously younger people, they're into this fast food stuff, and now of course we get deliveries, right? Through your phone app you can get food delivered from the supermarket, which is what I do. I pretty much never go to the supermarket now to buy food. And then also you can obviously get food delivered to your house, so you don't actually have to move. Essentially you could just stay at home and just order food all the time and never go anywhere. And so there is this possibility that Russia could head in that direction. However, Russians are crazy about sport, absolutely crazy about sport through their culture. Now, Americans are crazy about viewing sport, and you have your extremes, right? So you have your jocks in school, you'll have your sports people in school, and I think the American sports system and their setup is incredible, the infrastructure. But I think sport in the US is maybe a lot more exclusive. Yes, you have your high school football team and high school baseball team with the cheerleaders and that. But in Russia, there's loads of sports that are just everybody does, like cross-country skiing, jogging, going out and about. Obviously, hiking is a big one in the US. It also is a big one here. But we have lots of things where people are just encouraged to just do sport. We have a thing ingrained in the culture here, which is like a morning exercise routine, a kind of stretching and preparing for the day. And that is from Soviet culture, and anyone born in the Soviet era does that, even if they're into sport or not. Another thing that Russian people have is the dacha. Russian people have some sort of garden allotment where they grow vegetables, or they have a village or country house that they grow vegetables in. And so many people will actually grow their own vegetables without any additives, without any pesticides, without anything. Another thing that Russians do is the vegetables that they grow at their dachas, they put them into jars with different types of vinegars, and they ferment the vegetables. And we all know fermented fruits and vegetables are extremely healthy. And so not only do they grow these vegetables, but they put these vegetables into ingredients that will sustain the vegetables throughout the year, and so they can continue eating healthily with foods with no pesticides, no additives, no chemicals throughout the year. How cool is this? This guy obviously does off-roading. Now also, because you have woke culture in the US, if you're overweight in the US, no one will say anything to you, perhaps suggest that you need to lose weight, because America's an all-inclusive society where you should never criticize anyone. And perhaps that has its bad issues and bad points, because if someone's overweight, perhaps they need to be told that they're overweight. When I was overweight, my friends would say to me, "Sam, you need to drop some pounds, mate. You're looking pretty unhealthy," and that's what I did. But if there's no one going to tell you that, and if all your friends are overweight too, then the chances are that you're not going to care about your weight. You're not going to care about dropping those pounds, and at the same time, you're going to have friends that are also ridiculously overweight. I can understand that you don't want to feel bad and you don't want to make other people feel bad. I completely get that, but that's the problem with woke culture, isn't it? When there's something that needs to be told to somebody that they need to drop pounds, but they can't be told. And also with kind of hip-hop culture, it's kind of cool to have thick thighs if you're a woman, and a big ass that you can twerk. And while twerking has even become a thing in Russia, you don't have to be big in order to do that. Now obviously, you know, who am I to say if you're big and you're watching this that it's your fault? I'm not trying to say that. I'm just saying in general, in Russia, there are not as many overweight people as there are in the US. And I think pretty much we can say it comes down to the planning, the culture, right? How far you're driving, how far you're walking, the amount you're eating, and the quality of the food that you're eating. Both the US and Russia are both heavily into sport. In the US, you've got that whole infrastructure when it comes to sport, so there's no reason why people should be overweight. But it comes down to those three things, and hopefully Russia will stay as it is right now, with slim, healthy people. At the end of the day, our health is our personal responsibility. In childhood, we run around, we don't think about doing sport, we just go out and we run, and we know we're active. And then we become adults. A few of us carry on implementing sport in their lives, but most of us get lazy, get the car, drive around, don't really do anything. And then we get to kind of middle age and we realise, blimey, we need to start doing sport again. And sport is obviously a lot more difficult as you're older. It's something you've got to choose to do rather than kind of go out and play football. But ultimately, your health is your responsibility. If you die early because you have diabetes, it's probably because you ate loads of food, junk food, all of your life, and you've got no one else to blame. Now obviously some people have diabetes because it is inheritary, is that the word? You know what I mean? And other people just abuse their bodies. So you've got to make that choice. What do you want to do? I walk around and get shouted out by random dogs. You can do that too. Go for walks, have arguments with these dogs, and stay healthy.